Top of the morning to you for Thursday, March 6th. This is Joe Lemire, joined by many of my tech colleagues, Jen Azara, Ethan Joyce, and Rob Schaefer. We are in New York City for Tech Week. One day of content in the books, another full day on the agenda later today. But Jen, what did you see yesterday, or what did you hear that stood out?
Well, we're in the thick of it now. One of my favorite sessions of the day yesterday, for sure, was my very own fan experience panel where we had Carrie Zaremba from MLB. It's just a really interesting take in terms of the psychology they're using, the way that they are drawing upon nostalgia. And I mean, I think everybody, you ask anybody, what their first memory is of a baseball game, and there are some common ones, but everybody's got some kind of visceral reaction to it. And so their ability to kind of harness that, marry it with the technology, actually find it a way to enhance it. I loved what she said about it could go two ways. Either you find a way to enhance that nostalgia, or you take away something that gets in the way of the nostalgia, right? So it was that eyes up when you come into the stadium, and you want to be able to come in and take it all in and have that wonder. And if you're busy, fumbling with your phone to get your ticket to load and hoping that it's scanning, it sucks away from that enjoyment a little bit. So she was great. My iPad was full of questions for her. I think people really responded. Even just our walk through after the session, people were trying to catch her ear left and right. So yeah, really, really impactful and an interesting, unique take.
Yeah, it resonated with me. She talked about that first memory of going to a ball game, being 8 years old and tasting cotton candy. And that's what sort of stood with her. For me, I was, 4.5 going to Fenway Park. And for me, that first sensation was just green, whether it's the green monster, the grass, everything was just overwhelmingly green as I walked up the ramp into the main concourse area. And certainly that's a shared experience that everyone has from that first sporting event. Rob, what stood out to you?
I enjoyed hearing from an executive with another league that I think is pretty reputable for their forward-looking bent, their focus on technology, which is the NBA. Amy Brooks, president of New Business Ventures, sat with our Dan Kaufman for a panel in the afternoon. And to hear her kind of lay out the NBA's increasing interest in Europe, potentially with a new league there in partnership with FIBA is something that's out there. Their focus on Africa and that billion-person market. Obviously, the NBA, its Launchpad accelerator program is something that we cover annually. They have a similar program that they just launched last year in Africa called the Triple Double accelerator. I went to their demo day in the fall, which is really interesting to see some of the innovation coming out of that market, which the NBA is obviously looking to for talent development, community impact. And then, of course, there's always a commercial element to growing the reach of the league and expanding the types of people that they're engaging with. So to hear about, their global efforts, and then also just some kind of practical applications of technology that they've found from a software perspective, she called out as a, particularly noteworthy revenue-driving piece of software that they've worked with recently, one of our 10 most innovative companies from last year at the SBA Tech Awards, WSC Sports. And we've seen their lead in terms of an AI application in highlight generation and creating kind of automating the process of creating formats for different digital platforms has been obviously tremendously useful to the NBA, but has probably driven a lot of engagement and commercial KPIs that follow for a lot of different leagues. So I thought that was a really wide-ranging and interesting conversation to listen to. My ears always perk up when someone with the NBA is talking tech, especially someone of the stature of Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Ethan?
I mean, I get lucky and I get to talk about the headliner of the day, which is NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. I think taking in the scope of what he's experienced in his 32-year tenure with that league is pretty crazy, because he was talking about just the start of his time, how, they're barely using email. No league has a website. He predates the BlackBerry and how it shaped our experience with our phones for the first time and in real fashion. And now he's part of a league that is just so focused on using tech to touch all these different aspects of what they're doing, whether it's to enhance their play data tracking, whether it's to help officials, and whether it's just to reach fans. I mean, I think I didn't even have a real scope for just how much the NHL Edge product touches everything that they're doing, especially when it comes to the alt broadcasts. They've got a lot of efforts with Roblox. You know, they are really trying to use tech in a way that is just enhancing everything. And, you know, he talked about the key partners they have. AWS is one of those key partners that help to do the first live broadcast from the cloud. It's really innovation like that stands out to me, and just the NHL's effort to push forward and make things better. But you got to talk to him. I'd love to know what you thought as well.
Yeah, many of those same points. The Commissioner Bettman's always been very expansive and very thoughtful from a thought leadership perspective, particularly on the embrace of technology. He gave the green light to what is now the infamous glowing Fox puck from the 1990s. And maybe the technology wasn't quite sophisticated enough at the time, but certainly it would be now. They've come a long way from that. There was a bit of news that he shared, one of which is that the league is now working with Verizon, one of their major partners, on a hockey technology laboratory to innovate and help scale some of these solutions. He also shared that as Alexander Ovechkin chases Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record, there'll be altcast where you can have a camera dedicated entirely to following Ovechkin and every move he makes on the ice. And, you know, as you mentioned, those animated altcasts, right around the same time as he took the stage, the league shared that, they would be doing a different take than the past 2 years where they did the Big City Greens national broadcast, and instead would be doing more regional broadcasts. And I thought one that was particularly noteworthy is there's going to be one streamed on Max. That'll be the first Spanish language animated altcast as they really lean into making sure that they find new audiences. And then, the other headliner of the day was Dan Reed of Meta. And the major takeaway there is that augmented reality glasses are sort of the here and the now. He talked about the price point of their Ray-Ban AR glasses being $300 compared to maybe $200 or so for a normal pair of Ray-Ban. So suddenly you're not talking about such a huge price point that you might have with other headsets and devices. And it has a lot of functionality that 5-10 years ago seemed like really far down the horizon. But of course, we still have one more very full day of content coming. Jen, back to you. What are you looking forward to later today?
Yeah, I mean, the day's chock full, so I hate to blow through it all and jump to the end. But personally, I'm really looking forward to the Tech Leader Roundtable that we're going to close things out with. I think we have some terrific voices there. I mean, people represented everywhere from LPGA to the Arizona Cardinals, MLS, and even the World Surf League. So I think it puts a nice bow on the day to kind of have that really free-flowing conversation between some of these experts to, not only comment on, anything they've seen and experienced here over the last few days, but kind of their view for the future. And so those are always great exchanges of ideas. Lots to get to until we get to that, but that's one for sure I'll be looking forward to.
Rob, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'd say get there early because our first panel of the day is also a great one. Abe Madcore sitting down with owner of the Seattle Kraken, Samantha Holloway, who obviously succeeded her father as principal owner of the team, the late David Bonderman. Samantha has a really interesting trajectory going from tech entrepreneurship to being the principal owner of a pretty young NHL franchise. So I think it'll be really interesting to hear from her about her path, and of course, an interesting time and an interesting inflection point for the Kraken coming out of their third season. I'm really curious to hear how she looks at, the next step of their efforts in terms of building and cultivating a fan base and kind of taking their next step as an organization. So that'll be first up for the day, and it's certainly one that I'm looking forward to.
Ethan, what do you have your eye on?
I love tech because it touches so much. And so I really like when I get to cover the venue and the franchise operations stuff. And we have a really good session coming up on that. It's going to be members of the Portland Trail Blazers, UFC, Wristband. They're all going to talk about the things they're doing to try to streamline their operations. I'm a big fan of Krista Stout. I'm looking forward to hearing her talk about what the Portland Trail Blazers have done to really enhance their business office. And for a humble plug, I've covered it a lot. So I might as well get that in there while we're talking.
Not sure that was so humble, but I'm glad you added it in there. I'm looking forward to the panel on artificial intelligence. What tech conference wouldn't have a lot of content related to that? We have Cam AI, one of our innovative companies, doing live translation and being able to do so in a way that's more or less replicating a native and natural voice as opposed to just being a literal translation, which is a real step forward. And certainly, I'm most excited to see Jeff Miller, the NFL's executive vice president, who oversees player health and safety. We honored the NFL and AWS for their digital athlete in our SBJ Tech Awards the other night. And what they've built is a really impressive tool that helps monitor loads and identify injury risk of players on a daily and weekly basis. But they also have the large AI capabilities to run massive simulations of 10,000 seasons. That's why the kickoff this past year looked a lot different than it had in the past, because they were able to run through these simulations and find a model that worked for the best combination of action, from encouraging players to return the kicks, but also minimizing the collisions. And so the data set and the algorithms that they've put together there are really impressive. And the NFL has really taken a major step forward in advancing this cause in recent years. This has been a wonderful reunion for the tech group, and we're so excited that so many of you are joining us in person. And I hope the rest of you are able to read online and maybe join us next year. But for Jen Azara, Ethan Joyce, and Rob Schaefer, I'm Joe Lemire, and this has been your Morning Buzzcast.